Well, good morning. Welcome back to Ken's Kuts. Thanks a lot for stopping by. On last week's episode, I talked about having an engine throttle control problem, and I had about 3 hours to work last weekend, and it fell short, didn't get much done, and I wrapped it up, called it a day, and this week has been crazy with my daughter's high school sports and whatnot, so we're going to get into this today and figure out what's going on with the throttle control. Got some tools here. And then part 2 is going to be a modification to the AXIS that has been long awaited. This is a collaboration that I started back in August with Andrew Easton, and he talked about it on his channel. So I've got some tools here. I'm going to break down the top end of this engine, and we're going to see what's going on here. So stick around, we'll get right to it. Okay guys, so on last Sunday's video, I mentioned I was having throttle control issues, and thanks to my buddy Jack over at Log Cabin Firewood, he's got the same machine. He talked me off a cliff, told me to take off the cyclonic air cleaner, which I did. Matter of like 4 bolts. Took the air filter out, removed this entire thing so that I could see all the linkage from above, and lo and behold, when I lift this off, it unveils a slight problem. That stupid little chunk of wood was caught up in the linkage, and it popped out the rod, which goes into that fitting. It popped out. So that when I move the lever, and it was jammed trying to stop the engine on the first run last Sunday, I pushed kind of hard and must have gotten that piece of wood right there, must have pushed up against this tapered piece of the housing, and it popped this linkage out. Which should be in there, but you got to find the sweet spot. So that's what's going on. So hopefully this is a simple fix. I'll get right back to you. All right, guys, so part 1 was successful, and thank God to Jack. Fortunately, I've got his hat on, so maybe that means something. Who knows? But anyway, on to phase 2 of this video. I want to talk about this next upgrade that I'm going to do. I had reached out to Andrew over the summer and said, hey, if there was any way to do a modification to the stroke limiter, which is right here, I was intrigued and wondering if he could do something and extend the length of the rod to allow the wedge to stop shorter off of the table, because I do a lot of mini splits. I do a lot of chunks of smoking wood, whatnot. And I've got a project coming up where I have a couple big orders for solo stove wood for little tabletop units, and I sell those in a milk crate. So I've got a lot of short stroke work coming, and Andrew said, yeah, we're going to work on something. So over the summer, he did a modification and made up a prototype, worked with his guys, his engineers, designers, and they made a part. And in conjunction with him doing that, I had tried to do a modification on my own. And I had actually taken this solid, what I thought was 3/4 bar stock to work, and had a piece welded to the end of it with an additional set of holes. And on a video about a month or so ago, I talked about doing the modification, dropping this in here and running it down. But in the case of the stroke limiter, the quarter turn spring fastener here that holds the stroke limiter in place. I had pulled this and dropped the rod all the way to the bottom, but at the bottom of this back plate that bolts in to the backside of the wedge, there was an extension of the rod material below the bottom of this plate. And when the first piece that I tried to split, the wedge came down and this rod extended past the bottom of this back plate and it smashed into the frame tube and sheared off this pin. So I had to take a set of easy outs, back out the insert that was threaded in there. There's a nut welded to a piece of tube stock here, which is then welded to the plate. So I wrote back to Andrew and Henri. He's the parts and service guy at Eastonmade. Kudos to Henri. Got to give him a big shout out. So just prior to Andrew shipping off to go to Europe for the trade show over there, he said, yes, we'll get something going. And then he was away for about 2 weeks. And I had messaged Henri on Facebook and said, hey, by chance, did Andrew ask you to put anything together? And he said, yes, we're shipping a part, and the part was to arrive. And it did arrive just prior to the Hope event. So the part that came was a modified piece that Andrew unveiled on his channel. This is the part. As you can see, there is a difference in the lengths, one versus the other. And he shipped me this part. And when I went to drop it into this tube, it didn't fit. Unfortunately, this AXIS is a 2021 model. And during some of Andrew's upgrades, no fault of his, it just happened that way that, I bought Gord Potter's demo machine. And when this tube came, the wall dimensions are too thick for it to fit into that frame tube. So I messaged the guys and I said, I don't know what happened, but this piece is made out of tube stock. This was a change that was made in manufacturing, and my original part was solid bar stock, and there's a difference of about 20 or 30 thousandths across the width and the depth of this piece, and this was my part. So I continued to keep using this, and I held on to this. Fortunately, I did. So Andrew was away. He came back from Europe, went off to Bunyan, and I continued a dialogue with Henri. And he said, I know what the problem is. The frame tube here has been changed to work in conjunction with this concept of a stroke limiter. And he said, I'm going to send you parts that you can just unbolt this back plate, which holds the tube and the welded nut and the spring pin for doing the adjustment. He says, we're going to ship that out to you, and I'm also going to send you the original stock rod. So this is the original stock length rod with the holes going all the way up clear to the top. This is the modified rod with this pattern shifted down about 7 inches. We shifted the whole pattern. And this now will drop in to a new plate that Henri sent to me, 3/4 steel with a spring nut and the frame tube on it. And this tube drops in. So I was pleasantly surprised when this part with the spring nut and the original, this is the original design tube, the modified tube that they're making in current production. So I can now use the standard stroke limiter at any point, and then I can use what Andrew has cloned or coined the phrase, the short stopper. That's this part. So this has been a couple months in the making, and I'm excited to actually do this today. So I went ahead and loosened all these bolts. There's a set of 5 9/16 grade 8 bolts. I actually loosened them up already. So I'm going to pause the camera here and put you into a quick time lapse because I don't want to bore you with ratcheting 5 of these bolts out. So let me pause the camera. We're going to climb up on the machine here. I've got the wedge brought down so that I can work on it, and we'll get this part off and we'll start putting it back together with the new parts, and we'll be good to go. So stick around. All right, guys, we got these all lined up. Got them in there finger tight. Ran them in with the ratchet. Now I'm going to bring these down close. I got some heavy washers under them. I'm going to put a breaker bar on here. Lord knows what the torque spec needs to be, but we're going to give these a good, nice, heavy torque. All right. One more. All righty. All right, so as you can see, trying to zoom in there, that new back plate's on. The new tube is there with the new spring tip pin on it. And we've got the two stroke limiters over there, the stock one and Andrew's short stopper. And we're going to put that short stopper in. We're going to fire up the machine and we're going to run it through its paces. And I'm going to be sure that the short stopper, the bottom end of that tube, does not go past the bottom end of that plate, because I don't need to shear off any more spring pins. So let me drop that in there, warm up the machine, and I'll get right back to you. Alright guys, I got you in the shade over here. So I just set up the short stopper at the uppermost position, and as you can see, that wedge still stops way short of the stripper plates. So I just measured, and the tip of that blade, the wedge, is 17 inches from the table. And then at the lowest position, I'm going to go drop it back down and show you guys, just to you know, get a feel for the function of this piece. I actually measured that first and then raised it to the upper position. So at the lowest position, I'm going to show you that here in a second, it brings the wedge to within 9 inches of the table when it stops. And most of my mini splits are anywhere from 4 to 8 inches for smoker chunks and small smoker splits. Some guys like 8-inch, some guys like 12-inch. Most of the backyard grillers like my normal 14-inch. So with this machine and this short stopper, obviously, I'm going to be able to crank out whatever it is that these barbecue guys desire. And all I need to do is adjust the short stopper and we can go from there. So let me go raise the short stopper up to limit the travel to the low position, and I'll show that to you right here, and then we'll close out the video. So stick around. All right guys, and there you have it. That's the short stopper at the low position. The tip of the blade is 9 inches off the table. 9 to 17, so you have 8 inches of travel, and Andrew's got those holes on 1/2-inch centers. So you can increment that thing in 1/2-inch increments from 8 to 17 inches and anywhere in between to whatever your heart desires based on the lengths that you guys are cutting. If anybody's got an AXIS on order and you do small splits, you might want to consider asking Jerry with a G or Jeffrey Ormiston or Andrew, if you can also have the short stopper as an option on your machine. All right, guys, mission accomplished. That's about going to do it for this one. I've got to get dinner on the grill, and hopefully tomorrow morning we will fire this bad boy up and get back to splitting. The wood keeps coming in. I did a short earlier this week. I had beech nut, what I called pizza wood coming in. That's still on the access road over there. I've got about half of this cherry and pear that I didn't get to last weekend, so we'll have to get that all split up. And then I've got another treat coming into the wood yard that I'll most likely talk about on next Sunday's video. So until next time, guys, if you like what you saw, please go ahead and click the like and subscribe button. I was featured on Russ's channel over at Willie's Firewood. He wore my t-shirts on his channel. I did a short last week that took off for me, and as of this airing, I've picked up 30 subscribers. Actually 40, I'm sorry. I went from 420 to 460. So in 1 week's time, thanks to Russ over at Willie's Firewood and my little short that for me went viral. To some of you guys it's nothing, but it was huge for me. I got plenty of airplay on that one, and I picked up 40 subscribers. So we're closing in on that 500 mark. I've got a couple ideas for a tiny celebration when we get to the 500 mark, and hopefully that happens here sometime between now and possibly Thanksgiving. And I would be super thankful, because I literally started this channel November of 23. So it's been a year. It's been a slow climb, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And that's basically going to do it. I'm going to wrap this one up. Please go ahead again, click that subscribe button, the like button, share with your friends. And until next time, get outside, get cutting, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.